In February 2011, a new stage adaptation of Mary Shelley's 1818 novel, Frankenstein, or the Modern Prometheus, premiered on the stage of the Royal National Theatre of Great Britain. On this stage, at this theatre located next to the River Thames in London, Danny Boyle directed Jonny Lee Miller and Benedict Cumberbatch in this new play written by English screenwriter and playwright Nick Dear. Horror fans might recognize the name Danny Boyle, as he was the director of the 2002 post-apocalyptic, not really zombie movie, even though too many people do call it a zombie movie, but that's another conversation for maybe another podcast, 28 Days Later. While movie fans mostly know him from films like 28 Days Later and movies like Trainspotting and Slumdog Millionaire, Boyle also has a career in the theater going back at least as far as the 1980s. The Nick Dear stage adaptation hews fairly close to the novel, but there are some significant differences as well. One of the most evident and affecting is telling most of the story from the Frankenstein creature's point of view. As a stage production, this version of Frankenstein also has a fairly significant gimmick. The roles of Victor Frankenstein and the creature were played alternatingly by Benedict Cumberbatch and Jonny Lee Miller, and they both gave such strong performances that they were both awarded the Laurence Olivier Award for Best Actor in a Play from the Society of London Theatre. This award is normally only given to one actor, but since both actors played both roles during the play's run, it was a shared honor. Teen Death's Derek and Beth didn't think they'd ever get a chance to see this play, as it had a limited run, ending in May 2011. They didn't realize that the play was filmed, and as part of the Royal National Theatre's National Theatre Live program, it was broadcast to various theaters and other outlets worldwide. That broadcast was recorded, and is available to watch online on various websites even today. Again, Derek and Beth didn't realize that, so when the Phoenix Art Museum announced that they would be showing the recording of that broadcast, they jumped at the opportunity to see this production on the screen. This is The Bride of Monster Kid Radio. What you're hearing right now is the song Eternal Nightmare. It's on the album Ghoul Lagoon, Transylvanian Terror Tubes. It's from the musician Ghoul Guy. You can find Ghoul Guy on Facebook or go to the Bandcamp page at ghoulguy.bandcamp.com and check out the entire album when you're done listening to this episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio. We have heard the call. I heard you. Literally, I heard you. We got voicemails like this.
Ah, damn it, come back! We miss you so much. What did I do wrong?
So, we are back in a slightly different form. I'm still the same old Derek M. Cook, the writer, producer, and host of this podcast, which is now called Bride of Monster Kid Radio, and I'm excited to be back to podcasting. We took an extended hiatus while Beth and I were relocating from the PDX to the PHX. We moved from the Pacific Northwest to the American Southwest. We now live in Arizona, in the Phoenix area in particular, and that's going to come up later, and I'll tell you why, and you just have to stay tuned for that. But we are back. Oh, and I am so excited. I have missed you so much. I have missed podcasting. I have missed doing anything creative. I've been in a creative slump as I've just been trying to get our lives set up down here. Beth and I have been working real hard to kind of find our place and do our thing. Now, if you follow us on Facebook or X or even Instagram, I think we posted a couple of times over there, you know that we were busy last month because we got involved with a local haunt. We got involved with Apocalypse Rawhide, which was a unique kind of haunted house experience. Less haunted house, more give the guests light guns that act like shotguns and turn them loose on a course of actors dressed up as zombies. It was a lot of fun, and it gave us an opportunity to dive into the haunt community down here in Arizona. Well, between that, my working now, I've found a full-time job, Beth working, and us just kind of getting used to living where we're living right now, we just didn't have the energy, the time, the ability to get the podcast up and running again. I even have some stuff in the Monster Vault from Steve Turek when he recorded a bunch of stuff before he had to take a break from all things in his life. And, you know, I am going to release all of that, and I've got so many plans for what this new iteration of the podcast is going to look like. The podcast website doesn't change. It's still monsterkidradio.net. Our email address doesn't change. It's still monsterkidradio@gmail.com, and obviously our voicemail line isn't going to change either. I mean, you heard Captain Billy, right? That number is still 360-524-2484. We still have Reddit, we still have Discord, we even still have Patreon, and there's going to be some changes coming to the Patreon for December, so stay tuned for that. But, you know, we want to grow. We want to evolve a little bit, and I have some new show ideas that I want to try out. I've already recorded one, and I think it went really well. So I'm just going to ask you to bear with us as we get our bearings here and launch Bride of Monster Kid Radio and get the podcasting flowing again. Open the gates on Skull Island and release this King Kong of a pod. You know, we're not talking about King Kong this week. We're talking about another classic property when it comes to all things Monster Kid Dumb. I mentioned it at the top of the show during the spoken word intro. We're going to be talking about Frankenstein, a stage production that was recorded and then shown in a theatrical setting. And oh my, I cannot wait to share that conversation with everybody. So stay tuned for that. Also, one thing that we missed because Beth and I left the Pacific Northwest, we left the Portland area before October really kicked off, which meant we had to miss Scare-A-Thon at the Joy Cinema in Tigard, Oregon. The Joy Cinema is one of the ancestral homes of Monster Kid Radio, and I miss it so much. I miss what the Joy Cinema is all about. I miss the vibe, I miss the atmosphere, and I missed Scare-A-Thon. Fortunately, one of the Monster Kid Radio irregulars did go to Scare-A-Thon, and he called in his thoughts on every movie they played during that event. So, we're going to get weird with Jeff later in this episode. Also, it wouldn't be an episode of Monster Kid Radio, Bride or otherwise, without some of our regular segments. Mark Metzke is back with a beta capsule review. He is picking up right where he left off. We're diving right back into Ultraman Ace. He's reviewing Ultraman episode by episode by episode. If you go into the older episodes over at monsterkidradio.net or whatever podcast directory you happen to use, you're going to find that Mark's been knocking it out of the park, and I was thrilled to have him back. And honestly, I feel like I've been talking a lot here. I want to bring Ghoul Guy to a close. Don't worry, you're going to hear this song uninterrupted at the end of this episode. And I'm eager to get to the rest of the show, so here we go!
This is Stan Spider-Man Lee in the bullpen of Marvel Comics, where superheroes are a way of life, telling you about Sinbad, the superhero of the atomic age. Sinbad, more action than 1,000 kung fus. Sinbad, the motion picture miracle of the century. Sinbad, filmed through the magic of Dinorama. But don't let this soft sell fool you. The Golden Voyage of Sinbad from Columbia Pictures Rated G is marvelous!
Monster vs. Goliath, the mightiest battle of all, pitting unseen evil powers of black magic against the might of Goliath in Goliath and the Vampires. A wooden stake through the heart destroys a bloodthirsty beast of evil, but is the might of Goliath powerful enough to overcome the vampire forces of the Netherworld?
I shall take your shape, and in your likeness I will destroy my enemies.
All this when Goliath invades and destroys the virgin harem of the vampire god. See Gordon Scott as Goliath in his newest and greatest adventure. Dino De Laurentiis presents Goliath and the Vampires in color and scope from American International.
Live from the Land of Light in Nebula M78, home of the mighty Ultra Heroes, it's Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review. Ultraman Ace, Episode 16, Summer Horror Series, Scary Story of the Cattle God-Man. TAC member Yoshimura is given time off to be with his mother on the 13th anniversary of his father's death. While on the train home, he meets Takai, a free-spirited drifter from Tokyo who loves to sightsee. Yoshimura invites him home, but his irreverent guest steals a relic from the local cow shrine. Working in concert with a supernatural curse, a Yapul alien causes Takai to transform into Kaiju Kaura, a monster bull, driven by the fury of millions of cattle that have been consumed as beef. Hokuto and Minami combine to form Ultraman Ace, but they must handle the situation knowing that inside the terrible monster is a human being. Episode 16, which premiered July 21st, 1972, succeeds in making a story about a kaiju cow not lapse into total ridiculousness. This is achieved by crafting visually appealing shots filmed on location near an ocean village, combining them with detailed miniature work, and concentrating on a TAC member who had yet to be featured. Yoshimura's wholesome relationship with his mom is not only heartwarming, but also highlights the contrast between his country upbringing and his metropolitan vocation as a monster fighter, which parallels the contrast between countryside superstition and cityfied sophistication. As one line of dialogue put it, there are still things that can't be explained by science. A giant laser-blasting cow is most certainly one of those things. For Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review, this is Mark Matsky reporting.
Have something to share with Bride of Monster Kid Radio? You can email the show at monsterkidradio@gmail.com, or you can call and leave a voicemail at 360-524-2484.
You'll shriek at the sight of 13 ghosts when you see them through the new Ghost Viewer that will be given to you free at this theater. Bring the whole family. They'll all enjoy this completely different scream sensation, happily created to scare the living daylights out of you. William Castle, whom the Saturday Evening Post calls the master of movie horror, tells you more about it.
Do you believe in ghosts? I do. And you will too. When you come to this theater and see my picture, 13 Ghosts. When you see 13 ghosts, you'll be given a supernatural viewer, which will enable you to penetrate for the first time into the spirit world. It will let you see all 13 of our weird, wonderful, and wildly assorted ghosts.
13 Ghosts, the motion picture where there's a ghost for each member of the family. See the ghost of a lion in the basement. The ghost of a murderous cook in the kitchen.
Stop it! Stop it, I say!
The ghost who speaks through the lips of the living.
Death tonight. To one of you. Ah!
The evil ghost in the bedroom fighting to take possession of a beautiful girl. there are 13 ghosts to choose from, so pick your favorite spook. In Columbia Pictures, 13 Ghosts. And remember, everyone who comes to this theater to see 13 Ghosts will get a free ghost viewer, and only you will be able to see all 13 ghosts in new Illusiono, because only you will have the ghost viewer. It turns ghosts on, it turns ghosts off. Happy haunting.
It's murder at its merriest with guns,
Gag, gal.
Ghoul,
and Abbott and Costello in their wildest and newest mystery comedy,
Abbott and Costello Meet the Killer, Boris Karloff.
Hello, Derek and the Musketeers and the Bride of Musketeer Radio. This is Jeff calling from the back row of the Joy Cinema in Taggart, Oregon. It is the 26th of October, 2024, and that means it is time for Scare-A-Thon. I'm going to be here all day. I will call after each movie, at least, and let you know what I saw and what I thought of it. The first feature, The House of Frankenstein, just ended. And wow, what a great movie. Now, I say a great movie now. I didn't remember seeing this before, but according to IMDb, I have seen this before, and I only rated it a 5. I must have been having a bad night or something, because this movie is not a 5. I mean, maybe 5 out of 5, but certainly not 5 out of 10. This was a really, really super enjoyable movie. Everyone was just top-notch, and, it's kind of a shame that Dracula didn't actually meet the Wolfman and Frankenstein's monster, but at least, he interacted with the mad scientist and the murderous hunchback, so there's that. Little fun side bit for those of us that remember Derek and I love Star Trek. One of the two women, only two women in the movie, Anne Gwyn, she is the grandmother of the Kelvin Universe Timeline Captain Kirk, better known on Earth as Chris Pine. So, anyway, have a great time here. Already had a slice of pizza. Gonna pick up some popcorn and refill my soda between the two movies. Next up is The Tingler. And you know what? I know I've never seen The Tingler. I know I need to, and I'm about to. Oh, wow. This could have been a great movie. It's fun. It's good. It's fun. I hate to say it, probably could have been a better movie with a different director who wasn't trying for gimmicks. Although as far as gimmicks go, the whole audience screamed when it was appropriate. And that was so much fun. You really misses the boat though. A few things script-wise. The way people just accept something terrible has happened and just go on with their lives. It is so weird, so unbelievable. Huge props to the actress that played Mrs. Higgins. From what I read, she actually learned her ASL, American Sign Language, lines. They may not have been perfect ASL, but to those who can read sign language, apparently, she did a good enough job to communicate. And her facial expressions were great. She was a terrific actress in this. Nice twist with Vincent Price. For those who haven't seen it, I won't tell you what the twist is, but it was pleasant. Another thing I didn't like, the score. It was probably great and revolutionary at the time this movie was made, but at this point it sounds like a parody of a horror film score, and it was just too overdone. I think this movie, next time someone asks me what horror movie should have a modern remake, I'm going to say The Tingler. Now, also, Star Trek connection. You cannot watch this movie and see Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan and not tell me that SETI eels weren't based on The Tingler. Certainly the physical appearance of it. Oh my gosh, so similar. I've seen pictures of The Tingler before, but actually seeing the movie now and seeing it move, and the way it attaches to a person. Now, granted, the way the city attaches to a person is different. It crawls in their ear, but still, yeah, that had to be a connection. We just finished watching 20 Million Miles First at the Joy Cinema Scare-A-Thon 2024. This is my first time seeing this film also, and I enjoyed it. Didn't love it, but I enjoyed it. It's good story. The usual creature, very heavily designed. The skin texture on it looked so realistic. Now, the movement isn't always that smooth. It's stop motion, and sometimes the layering of the creature on the background or other special effects done with multiple images merged together. Yeah, not that good, but it's a product of its day. I'm sure for its day, it's awesome. The star of Bloom Hopper, better known to me as Paul Drake from Scare-A-Thon. Any school where he wasn't just Joan Taylor, he pretty wooden, didn't seem to want to be there, and from what I understand, as an actor, he didn't want to be there. But when he's with Joan Taylor as Dr. Leonardo, he turns the charm on, and he's really delightful to watch. The battle between the Venusian and elephant, the word that comes to mind is Titanic. It was really incredible. And we get to the climax, and the creatures claim the Colosseum. I realized for the story feels familiar. That was King Kong. It was King Kong with details changed. But basically it was King Kong. It was still really enjoyable. I'm glad I saw it. Well, Monster Kid, I have just finished watching Troll 2 at Joy Cinema Scare-A-Thon. As George likes to put it, well, that was a movie, technically. Oh my God, that was so bad. Dude, it's really bad. I wanted to give it credit for having a feel like a Lovecraftian story, but inland instead of on the coast. But I did some reading, sitting here in my back corner while it was on, and there was nothing about Lovecraft thought going into the production of this movie. So that's just a coincidence. That wasn't intentional. I'm trying to come up with something positive to say about this movie. The beginning is, let's be really generous and call it an homage to The Priceless Bride. But more like it. I guess the best thing I have to say about it is it's still better than Fun in Balloon Land. Scare-A-Thon 2024 has completed with The House That Dripped Blood. For those who don't know, The House That Dripped Blood is an anthology. So there's a framing device and four stories. Each one was a different, rather famous English actor. The first one stars Denholm Elliott, perhaps best known to American audiences as Marcus Brody from the Indiana Jones movies. The next one stars Peter Cushing. The third one had Christopher Lee. And the fourth one had John Pertwee, perhaps best known to, any audience as the third actor to play the Doctor in Doctor Who. This was great. It's a lot of fun. The first three are genuinely chilling. The fourth one, I don't know if it's director's footage or Pertwee's choice, but it's played for humor. And it's very entertaining. I know I've seen this before, not enough to have remembered all the details, which is nice when you're watching a film. It's good to be at least a little bit surprised. And this one was highly enjoyable, but very reminiscent of horror comics from the 1950s, 1960s, particularly EC Comics, or, it's a less gory version of the 80s anthology horror movie Creep Show or Tales from the Dark Side. It's very much that kind of vibe. But pretty clean. It's certainly horrific element, but it's not gory. It's more frightening. There's no live action nudity. There's a couple paintings of nudes, but it's not like they're focused on. So, let's. I mean, I wouldn't want a 5-year-old to watch it, but a 10-year-old would probably be okay. So, anyway, it was a lot of fun. I'm glad I saw this again. It was a great way to wrap up the night. So refreshing after the garbage that was Troll 2. I mean, I'm kind of glad I saw Troll 2. But if you ever hear me or see the post that I'm watching Troll 2 again, be aware that that's a sign that I'm in danger and I need help immediately. Because I would not be doing that willingly. House of Blood, though. Wonderful. Highly recommend it. And that's it. I hope everyone has a happy Halloween. This may not post before Halloween. In which case, I hope you have a happy Halloween 2025. Have a great day, folks.
Soon to your theater, an enchanting fantasy of fabulous, gigantic balloons and little children acting in your favorites. Do you want to have a good time? Of course you do. Then come to this most mystical, magical land, Balloon Land. See Sonny's adventures in Fun in Balloon Land. The family of the farmer in the dell. The girls and Sonny sing and play. In another adventure, Sonny wanders around the floor of the ocean and meets some weirdies. Sonny finds himself in the Old West. Anything can happen in a dream, you know.
The National Theatre of Great Britain presents the smash hit Frankenstein, directed by Danny Boyle. I can create people. Playing in cinemas worldwide for a limited season from June.
You make sport with my life in the cause of science.
Benedict Cumberbatch and Johnny Lee Miller alternate roles in this electrifying stage production.
This is your universe, Frankenstein.
To find venues and book tickets, visit ntlive.com.
We just left the Phoenix Art Museum where we saw just an amazing filmed production of Frankenstein with some of my favorite actors. I think yours as well, Derek. Benedict Cumberbatch and Johnny Lee Miller among a just really great ensemble cast. I was really excited to see this.
So this is something that I'm sure we talked about on Monster Kid Radio, PB, pre-Beth.
Pre-Beth.
PB, before Beth. And it was something that I never thought I'd have an opportunity to see. This was a stage production in England. I'm not exactly sure where in England off the top of my head, but it was a stage production that, like you said, Johnny Lee Miller and
Benedict Cumberbatch.
And it was directed by Danny Boyle, who's done quite a bit of work over there in the UK. I think Academy Award nominated director as well. I wasn't really aware of his stage background. If he has a stage background, that's something I'll have to look up. But I didn't think I'd ever get a chance to see this. So when the Facebook algorithm decided to show us, or show me, an ad for this coming up at the Phoenix Art Museum. I jumped at it. The gimmick of this production, and I hate to use the word gimmick because I'm not trying to cheapen the experience, but the gimmick was that half the time the role of the monster was played by Johnny Lee Miller, the other half of the time would be Benedict Cumberbatch, and then Dr. Frankenstein would be played by the other actor.
Mm-hmm.
The version that we saw, Johnny Lee Miller was the monster. Benedict was
the scientist.
The scientist. And it was something else, man.
It's so powerful. I mean, I also had really never thought I would get to see this performance. And, not living in England and everything. And I'm such a theater nerd, and, with my theater background and having directed a number of shows, I especially love directing shows that are in the public domain because it allows you to do so much with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt like the director here, the scene designer or scene design team, the lighting team, everything just blew it out of the park. It was so intense and full and vibrant. It was pretty amazing.
I didn't know what to expect going in because such a to-do was made about the lead actors swapping roles depending on which night you went to see it. I kind of thought it was just going to be a two-man show. I did not realize it was going to be a full-on production. And in some of the scenery was still a little stark, but still very effective the way they did it. It's the stagecraft on display here was pretty impressive. I also worry, theater's very different than film or video.
Yes.
So I didn't know if the energy that you get with a live performance was going to translate. Fortunately, they had cameras placed kind of all over the place.
Multiple angles.
It wasn't just set up a camera, on the orchestra pit and let her rip. This was, the camera placement. We had cameras looking down on the stage, which the audience would have never had a chance to see. So we got to see more.
I was thinking that too. Some of the neatest effects and scene changes, we got to see the view from above or even from the sides in sometimes.
Yeah.
And so it gave a whole new perspective to how things were working. The stage itself, I was just fascinated by. That the center of the stage was a circle with sort of corkscrew properties where it could recede down into the rest of the stage while turning, which allowed for some amazing flips of backdrops and scenery and set design pieces. All of that was just so fluid and so well done. But beyond all of that, beyond all of the set dressing and the lighting and all of those sorts of things, even the costumes, which I felt were great.
Mm-hmm.
And they really looked lived in and worn.
Yes.
Sometimes with costumes, I know this is a thing that I've had an issue with when I've directed before, making sure the costume designer knows if these shouldn't look like brand new clothes, don't go get brand new clothes. Even in the right period, it should look like something that people have worn. And that was great. But, I mean, the performances, the acting performances by both our leading two, particularly Miller, who really carries a lot of this show.
Yeah, he carries the monster.
Monster carries, the monster carries more of the load in this case than in some of our traditional Frankenstein films.
So the story actually opens with him.
It does.
The production begins with him. We don't have anything with the scientists for a good chunk. And I didn't check a watch or the clock or whatever, but I feel like the first 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, I was even going to say 30.
It's just Johnny Lee Miller basically as a newborn. He's learning to walk. He's learning to vocalize. He's experiencing just the act of being. And it is captivating.
I was so enthralled. I was just sucked into where I spent several chunks of the presentation leaning forward, elbows on knees, just eyes glued to the screen, trying to take in every bit.
I don't know if I've seen that beginning to a Frankenstein story where we treat the creature as a newborn. I know, yes, there a lot of times you see Frankenstein films where they are new to the world, they are innocent, they don't know what's going on, but this was the physicality, the facial expressions, the body acting, the full performance, using everything in his toolbox to give us that portrayal was pretty amazing, pretty stunning. I actually was a little disappointed, I'll be honest, as the production continues, where he suddenly starts, okay, it's not suddenly, but after having that amazing moment at the beginning, towards the end, he's a very articulate creature. He's quoting Milton and everything else. And,
becomes a bit less feral.
Yeah, and yeah. I guess I like my Frankenstein a little bit more feral, especially since Johnny Lee Miller did such a good job. That said, I can't imagine Johnny Lee Miller doing that for 3-4 hours at a stretch and not being in agonizing pain, because his contortions and the bumping around and the falling and everything, it was just really, really impressive.
Yeah, definitely. There was definitely some, I imagine, some stretching, and I imagine he had to do quite a bit of working out to get himself into that kind of shape. And when I say that, it's not, he wasn't in the shape of like male love interest where they have them starve themselves for 2 or 3 days before the shirtless scene and then, and dehydrate and all. Not like that. He just looked like he was in incredibly healthy, good shape.
Yeah.
And very limber and able to move in ways that were unhuman.
Imagine having limbs and body parts that you don't know how to move. And that's what he was doing. It's something that, not nearly to this scale of success, but it's something that you and I have been doing at the Haunt. Mm-hmm. We're walking around like zombies with body parts that don't make sense. And, this is exactly what Frankenstein's monster is. I'm not saying he's a zombie, but he's using body parts that are new to him, except he's not a newborn baby physically. He's a full-grown man, and
diaper and all.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And it was really, really good.
It was. There were even moments where I was near tears, which for me meant a lot, because I really love the hope and the message of love in the Frankenstein story. I think people sometimes miss that because the monstrosity is so big and so great. But Shelley really does write about love and feelings and what it means to be a human.
And what it means to be different. That was a theme that I picked up on this time around. I've seen a lot of Frankenstein movies. Of course. a lot. I don't know how many you are, how familiar you are with the overall original story. I mean, I know we've watched Bride together and everything.
Well, I mean, I've read the book a few times.
You have read Shelley's original, and as have I. I don't remember the theme of being different yet accepted being as prevalent in other versions of this story.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
And I was kind of moved by that and thought, you could read a lot into that. There are a few moments here and there that invite interpretations that I've never had with other Frankenstein stories.
It definitely focuses on his loneliness as an individual, and I think there's a neat dichotomy between the monster's loneliness and the scientist's loneliness.
Yeah.
Because when we do have Cumberbatch come in and start interacting with the monster and with his own family and extended family, friends, whatever, we see that the scientist himself is incredibly lonely. And so perhaps he's built this being in part to solve that loneliness,
Yeah.
Not that it works out for him, but...
No, or anybody around him. You said something earlier regarding taking public domain pieces and directing them.
Yes.
I want to be clear, while Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is in the public domain, the play was written by somebody else for this particular production. So this play itself is under copyright, but the overall story of Frankenstein obviously is in the public domain.
Sure.
So I do wonder if there were some liberties taken. I'd have to go back and reread Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and watch some of the other films that are supposedly more true to the source material, like Kenneth Branagh's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. with Robert De Niro as the monster. Something happens. Frankenstein's creation does something to Elizabeth in this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember seeing or reading before. And I don't know if it was needed.
I actually felt that the scene in question, which
we're dancing around.
Trigger warning, I guess, for physical abuse and
essay.
Yeah. In this case, it really showed the difference in the end between the man and the monster. That there were things that the man wouldn't do that the monster was willing to in order to achieve his goals or get to where he needed to be.
At that moment, I lost all sympathy for the monster. Now,
absolutely.
Up until this point, we had the whole him being born, him coming into his own, him experiencing the sun for the first time, rain for the first time. Sure, he did some terrible things up until this point.
Discrimination and hate for the first times, and beaten by strangers for how he is.
And I had sympathy for him at that point. Even during and this is part of the Frankenstein mythos, so I don't feel like I'm spoiling it.
Sure.
The blind hermit sequence when I
love the blind hermit sequence.
So good. And that's where he does a lot of learning and coming into his own. He experiences snow for the first time.
Mm.
And then at one point when he's rejected by the hermit's family, he burns the hut down and kills everybody. Even at that point, I hadn't lost my sympathy for him. I thought it was terrible, but I didn't think, I just thought, well...
Well, and to be fair, he had been attacked by a family member.
Exactly.
The hermits.
But when that happened between him and Elizabeth, I was like, well, I don't have any sympathy for you anymore. I cannot empathize with you anymore. You are not the Frankenstein monster that I like.
Okay.
And that is a testament to the power of the storytelling and the performance. It just felt a little extra for me.
Okay, that's fair. Speaking of the blind hermit, or I'm not thinking of him so much as a hermit in this case.
That's true.
Because he's not alone. He does have family.
He does.
But we get the similar thing of, the family doesn't see the monster. He comes while they're out working, but they see his effect. They see wood being chopped and stacked up. They see fields being cleared of stones. They see their father being a happier person and more contented and less alone, less lonely. I've really enjoyed this scene in the original movies. It's probably my favorite scene of the whole thing because it's where the monster learns what humanity is and learns love and learns hope, all of these things. And so I was concerned about how it would be done because sometimes it's kind of glossed over through too fast. The point gets missed. But this isn't just a monster story about a rampaging monster. It's about the struggle between the monster and the man, which was, I think, why it was so neat to do this show that way with two actors who switch back and forth which parts they play,
I mean, it's just the age-old, who's really the monster or the man who made him, it's that whole thing.
Is that whole thing?
I would like to see if there's a way to see the swapped performance version.
I also, yes.
I do think, and maybe it's because I didn't have a lot of experience with Benedict Cumberbatch up until recently.
Uh-huh.
I mean, obviously saw him in Star Trek and
Doctor Strange,
and, was one of the Enigma Machine.
The Imitation Game.
Yeah,
yes.
Which is phenomenal. But you're a big fan of the show Sherlock.
Mm-hmm.
And while we haven't finished the series together, you've watched the whole thing.
Yes.
And you've been introducing it to me, and then we had this whole Moon thing happen, and we kind of fell off. But I've been watching a lot of Sherlock with you, and I really love him in that. I saw a lot of shades of Sherlock and Frankenstein's performance.
There were definitely some shades of that. Although there were differences, too, that Sherlock has this innate confidence, and his Dr. Frankenstein is more insecure. He's confident in his scientific abilities, but not at all in his social abilities and those sorts of things. So I find it's almost ironic that then he creates a monster who has these same social struggles, but to the nth degree,
Yeah.
to an exponential degree. And so it's like in creating a man, he has just created a bigger, more outlandish version of himself.
I also thought Elizabeth really kind of accepted what he had done pretty easily. It's like, oh, okay, which I think speaks to her confidence in her, well, now husband when that happens, which I thought was really nice.
Naomi Harris, who plays Elizabeth, a pretty famous British actress and fantastic actress. I really enjoyed her portrayal in this. I felt like this Elizabeth had a little more power, was more of a real person. Sometimes that character is just like, oh yeah, that's the wife, to the side.
Right, so much so that they recast her between the first Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein.
There you go. And
nobody
noticed.
Nobody seemed to really care. Yeah.
So I really was impressed with Naomi's performance there, and boy, to hold your own on stage with Cumberbatch and Miller, who are both big personalities, big characters, and pretty decently sized dudes too,
Yeah.
And she really did hold her own and did not get lost in the scene. So very impressed. You had brought up earlier interesting aspect that Naomi Harris, of course, is being of mixed race from Britain.
She's a woman of color.
She clearly has some African ancestors in there somewhere. And then also the man George Harris, no relation to her, common last name, who played Victor Frankenstein's father.
Yeah.
I assumed was some sort of like adopted mentor, mentee, like this was my protege who I then adopted and he took my name sort of a thing.
Well, but Victor's little brother was also a person of color.
But see, that's why I thought that.
Okay.
Because it's like he's been brought into this family.
That brings up a really interesting family dynamic, because I've always thought, and when I first read Frankenstein, when I first was exposed to it, I'm going to marry my cousin Elizabeth. Well, that's a little weird.
But not if you've been adopted into the family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
so,
yeah, I didn't have a problem with the difference in skin tone. It doesn't bother me. I think the performances were strong nonetheless, and it worked. I just didn't know what you thought of it.
I actually liked it. So I have thought about that before, and especially even with the book originally, that I do feel like there's this feeling that maybe he's been adopted into the family, and so he has to prove himself. And then if he is an orphan, that just adds to the loneliness.
It really does.
The monster is an orphan in a way, he's an orphan in a way, because even if you say, well, the monster has him as a father, but one, he kind of abandons it or drives him away, but also no mother.
Yeah.
And how much do we all owe to our mothers for gentling our feral instincts? I know I do to mine and my grandmothers and stuff, and I think you could probably say the same.
Yeah, my mom's awesome. Yeah.
Tend to tell us things like, don't ride your bike down that 45-degree hill that has no place to stop at the end before the 45-mile-an-hour road. Or don't set yourself on fire. Which the monster, I think, would agree, not liking fire too much.
Which, that wasn't a thing in this.
That's true. That wasn't really a thing in this.
He does burn himself at one point, but it's like...
It's not a big deal. It's like, oh, stove hot. Yeah. Overall, I just enjoyed the whole performance. Every scene change was enthralling. I don't think there was a single person on stage that didn't do a great job.
Yeah.
Just very, very impressed overall.
The set design, the set work, the stagecraft was amazing.
The sound was so good.
So that's the other thing that I was worried about regarding live theater being filmed and presented this way.
You have issues sometimes.
But this was well mic'd. They had everything ready to go, and there was something else that happened at the very beginning. So we go through this whole bit with Johnny Lee Miller being born and all that, and we see with the rain and seeing the sun and the sun setting and everything else. And then a train comes on stage, and it's loud and bombastic, reminding us that Frankenstein is an excellent proto-example of steampunk. It's like, that's awesome. Let's put that in there.
And that it comes out of kind of the Industrial Revolution era, exactly. Industrialization of Western civilization. And that is very much felt through this. And I thought, what a cool way to do it. Also, I want a train on stage.
That was awesome. The way the stage was built, because we kept seeing shots from above, you could see the track.
And to be fair, it wasn't a full literal train. It was pieces put together to give the rough shape of a train and then covered in the chorus of actors, the ensemble, who were further doing movements and actions and contorting themselves to give that sense of a train and of
that's what I'm talking about.
And people.
The stagecraft
done.
The stagecraft behind the hermit's hut. I know it's not a hermit. A whole frame comes down from the ceiling, and we have both interior and exterior scenes, which is kind of hard to do on stage, if you're going to have a full structure like that. But the walls were all scrims, so basically transparent fabric.
But not just plain scrims. They had painted the wallpaper design from the back wall onto the scrim on the front wall, so that you still got that hint of the flowers going through.
To see through, you
very, very cool.
Light the inside so you can see what's going on inside. Turned off the lights on the inside so you can see what's going on outside. It's great. It's stage magic.
And it created a really nice back and forth. You had characters that were outside working in the field, and then characters inside the home. And so with lighting cues, you could go back and forth between the two. And no one's action ever stopped, but we just only heard the part where the light was focusing.
Exactly. And that was a great scene, too, to show the passage of time, which is something I struggle with as a storyteller, outside of saying, and then a week later, this happened. But this showing a passage of time, and that was really effective. And hey, by the way, I know I said it. I know that back in the day, marrying within your own bloodline was more common. I know. It just marrying your cousin. Why is that desired? That's something that resonated with me the first time I read Frankenstein. So thank you to this for showing me.
Maybe we look at a biological cousin. Like anything, new way to look at a film or a story or a play. It can really bring out, even if you've seen the story hundreds of times.
And I probably have.
It can bring out new ideas and new things for you. So if you haven't checked out National Theater Live's production of Frankenstein from 2011, definitely do that.
If it's possible. Is it available anywhere?
I'm not sure. I'm thinking maybe it's rentable somewhere or something.
You know what? Well, we're in the car right now, so I don't have my resources in front of me. I will do some research to see if it's available somewhere else. If you can see it, you should. Again, trigger warning, there is a little bit of essay. There's also some topless nudity from a female.
But very tastefully done.
Tastefully done. It is what it is, and it makes sense. It's not exploitive. But yeah, just a heads up on that.
And I would feel fine, as a mom. I think kids from about middle school age on would be, for the most part, okay with seeing this. There is that little bit of nudity, but the way it's done, I think, is both tastefully done, and it furthers the plot of the story. It's not ever done in a way just to be like, naked people on stage, woo!
It's not that. It's the other thing that makes me question that.
I think those are important topics to cover and discuss with young adults who can be in those situations potentially. And I think this could be a really powerful tool for teaching or a nice wrap up if, your youngster has read Frankenstein, a nice way to then spend some time with them. And definitely it's something I would watch with them, not, having them on their own, so you can facilitate that discussion. But yeah, I think it's something that older families could enjoy.
It's really good. It's highly recommended.
Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love a good monster?
Before we bring this episode to a close, I want to say thank you for all of your support over the past 10 plus years, over the past 666 episodes and more of Monster Kid Radio. I hope you find something to enjoy with this new version of the podcast. Bride of Monster Kid Radio is kicking off, and I feel like it kicked off pretty strong. This was not the original idea that we had for the first episode out of the gate. In fact, Beth and I were able to go see a presentation of the 1920s silent film version of Dr. Jekyll or Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in Phoenix. We found a movie theater that was showing it with a live quartet. That was originally going to be our first episode out the gate. coming back with Bride of Monster Kid Radio, but just kind of how things worked out, we ended up doing this Frankenstein episode first. Next week, we're going to get to the 1920s silent film, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And to go along with that conversation that Beth and I have about Jekyll and Hyde, Kenny's going to be back with his look at famous monsters of filmland. Now, Kenny and I have been talking away from the podcast, and he may be pulling back a little bit with his famous monsters of filmland segment. He's always welcome here. You know, I think he's made the podcast stronger and better with his presence, but real life gets in the way. I get it. I mean, this show's been on hiatus for how long now? We're just now coming back. So I totally get it. Fortunately, Kenny did do a segment for us, so that's going to be back next week. I'm guessing Mark's going to be back with another Beta Capsule review as well. And, you know, I've got a few other ideas, and I've been talking to a few other creators about maybe having a segment or two added to the mix. If you are a creator of any kind and feel like you want to contribute to Monster Kid Radio, I'd love to have you. Shoot me an email at monsterkidradio@gmail.com. Let's talk about social media. Let's talk about how you can follow along with all things Monster Kid Radio and Team Death in the future. So we've got the Facebook page and the Facebook group, which is probably where I'm most active. I'll be completely honest with you. I don't do much with the Twitter or X for Monster Kid Radio. I probably should, but really Facebook is the best place to look for Monster Kid Radio activity for now. I am thinking about creating a Blue Sky account for Monster Kid Radio as well. And, you know, I'll try to get more involved in other social media platforms. Also, we've got a Reddit. I don't do a lot with that either, and to be fair, neither do y'all. But if you're on Reddit, feel free to chat it up over there, the Monster Kid Radio Reddit. I would love to see some activity over there. We do have a Discord. It's also something that I don't spend a lot of time with. It's just, you know, I spend all this time doing the real life stuff, oh boy, as well as the production and the creative work and my writing and everything else. I don't do a lot with the other social media platforms, but if you'd be interested in helping out, again, shoot me an email at monsterkidradio@gmail.com. Also, we need some new artwork. We need new art. I love Sterling's artwork that we have on our website. I love the monster figures, the caricature chibi version. They're kind of chibi versions. I love the cartoons. I love those. But it's a new podcast, man. It's a new day. So Bride of Monster Kid Radio needs some new artwork. I can envision what I want it to look like. I just don't have the skills to make it happen. So I'm going to turn to you. Are you an artist? Do you have any clever ideas for what you think the logo, the artwork, the art style of Bride of Monster Kid Radio should be? Again, shoot me an email at monsterkidradio@gmail.com. In fact, let's do this. I need some logos. I need some artwork. I've got a Monster Kid prize pack or two that I'd love to give away. Contest time. Submit your artwork for Bride of Monster Kid Radio's new logo and branding to monsterkidradio@gmail.com by my birthday, December 11th. Winning contributors will receive a Monster Kid Radio prize pack as well as all the appropriate accolades and credits and everything else all over the website and all of that. I'd love to see what you can put together. Again, deadline for this is December 11th. I have a bunch of other plans and announcements regarding the future of the podcast, but I'm going to save that for an upcoming episode of House of Monster Kid Radio. Yeah, I'm getting really creative with the branding here, right? House of Monster Kid Radio is what we're going to call the new Patreon. Over at patreon.com/monsterkidradio, you don't have to be a paying patron in order to take advantage of what we've got going on over there. I am going to start posting more over there and getting that active, and I'm going to redo the Patreon levels, the patronage levels. Again, I appreciate everybody who has supported the podcast and our efforts through Patreon, and I hope I can keep you interested by offering this new series. It will be a short vlog once a month, private, just for you as a patron. You will get a monthly House of Monster Kid Radio if you are a patron over at patreon.com/monsterkidradio. However, the very first episode of House of Monster Kid Radio, everybody's going to get, because I want to kind of give you all a taste of what we've got going on here, what it's going to look like. And again, I want to make some announcements about what the future of Bride of Monster Kid Radio has in store for you. Anyway, monsterkidradio.net's where you're going to find everything you need to know about Bride of Monster Kid Radio and everything else that we've got going on. Links to some of those social media outlets are there, as well as our contact information. You're going to find links to the band, which I'll talk about here in a second. You're going to find the complete show notes all over there. So if nothing else, make sure you're checking out monsterkidradio.net. One thing that hasn't changed is if you want to help support what we do here and you use Amazon on the regular, when you shop at Amazon, please head over to our website and click on the little Frankenstein symbol there that's got the Amazon A in its torso. That's going to take you to Amazon. It's just going to be under the Monster Kid Radio umbrella. Then do your shopping. Then purchase whatever it is you put in your shopping cart. We get like a penny or two off the top of everything you order that way. With the holidays coming up, if you're going to do any shopping online, please help out Monster Kid Radio by using our Amazon affiliate link. It really helps us out in the long run, and it's just another way for you to be able to help out the podcast. Bride of Monster Kid Radio is a Team Death production. All original content of Bride of Monster Kid Radio is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 Unported license. You can learn more about Team Death, our other projects like Death Designs, Mail Order Zombie, the Team Death YouTube channel, and more at www.teamdeath.com. Remember, death is spelled D-E-T-H. All previous episodes of this podcast, as well as the original Monster Kid Radio podcast, are available at www.monsterkidradio.net. Please rate and review Bride of Monster Kid Radio wherever you download your favorite podcasts. I've been really fortunate that so many musicians have been willing to let us play their music here on the show, and Ghoul Guy is no exception. Eternal Nightmare is a song off their new album, Ghoul Lagoon, Transylvanian Terror Tubes. You can find the album at ghoulguy.bandcamp.com. You can pick up the album, name your price. Really, I mean, you can't do any better than that, right? 13 songs. It's a great album. I really dig it. Check out Ghoul Guy and let them know that Bride of Monster Kid Radio sent you. My name's Derek M. Cook. I'll talk to everybody next week when Beth and I get our Jekyll and Hyde on. Ciao.